I don't know, dudes. I don't want to jinx it. I may have found something finally this week. We had a good move, and it was the first time since like round 5 where we beat our peers basically with 1,313 here in Supercoach, moved up 2,200 spots. So it's been going backwards and backwards for a while now. And we're back into 9,600, and team value just eclipsed 16 million bucks, which is pretty wild, with a couple of trades ready to fire this week. But do we actually need to do it? That'll be the question. We've got Starling back. Turns out Docker Clay didn't even play and didn't feature in the side this week, which probably helped, to be fair, given he was likely to be my lowest scorer anyway. So I think my auto emergency ended up being Thomas Cant with a 34. So it would have been similar or worse to that anyway. So that was all sweet. But I did want to have a look actually at history. So I've hit 16 million this year. It's just crazy. Let's have a look where we got to last year. Now, all we did, we got a little bit higher. We eclipsed 15 million in round 16 last year. And so after round 13, actually we eclipsed it in round 14. So very similar to where we're at right now. 14.95 was last year after this round, and then 16 this year. And then last year, the highest we got to was in round 26 at 15.5. That was a big jump there. And surprisingly, after that week, it was an 11.88. But the big jump was from that 14.78 in round 25 with, a lot of those really, really high scores in that time. So, a big difference coming into this season right now has just been how much cash that we've all made. Now, if we move it back to where we are this year in 2025 and looking across the board, like I do have a couple of cheapies, one of them being Simpkins. I've had him from the start as my looper. Zach Docker Clay brought him in. He's a 360, so it's still not like chump change. And then we've got guys like Billy Smith who haven't performed all that well. Adam Dewey's at 420, same situation there. Thomas Cant, he only made a little bit of cash there. So they're the only real cheap guys in the side, which is pretty crazy. So then when you're looking at cheapies we had from the start, Tamale's almost up at 600k. I had the good win over the last 2 weeks bringing in Lehigh Hopewadi, who's gone up about 150k, which is awesome. And then I've got the three better fullbacks that you'd want in your side there in Pappenhausen, Drinky, and Teddy, who all performed okay without being spectacular. Guys like Garrick have actually lost a bit of cash. Lucas in there doing a job this week compared to the last with his 140 odd. A few people I've heard mention moving on from Munster. The break even is 104, sure, but it is up against the Cowboys and it is at home. So every chance that he can go really big like he did the 2 weeks before last one there with 138 and 101, and he actually has 103 in his last game against the Cowboys. So we can't count that one out too much. And yes, he's going to miss round 15, but who would you actually buy in this section as a replacement for Munster? Is kind of the thought there. I've got Adam Dewey, and something I'm potentially looking at in my side with where I'm at and who's actually a sell. You scroll down the squad, and someone like Payne Haas, people are thinking of, but I think I'm having a look more from a fantasy perspective, given we have less players available and we need to spread a bit of cash around to get some of these guns. Whereas in my side here, I picked up Kolomatangi and Aiken last week, which was good. They were the 2 trades I went for. I've got Dylan Egan, who's still sitting there out for the season. Guys like Corey Horsburgh could be moved on from, Thomas Cant, but again, who would you move to? Now, with Egan generally being only got a decent price that is worth selling, guys like Dewey, guys like Billy Smith, you can't get a lot out of that price point. So I'm actually potentially looking at selling Egan here, moving Lucas or Aiken up to second row forward, bringing Dewey down, and then bringing in either Galvin or Burton. And then Burton I started the year with, and I was super excited to have that. It's finally great to see him back in a decent position there, and they do play Parramatta at their home stadium this week. And then they play round 15 as well in that clash there against the Souths, with guys like Latrell out, which is gonna be tough for him. And I think that's a pretty good time to bring in one of those two if it works for you. Now they do miss 16, but they play the rest of the game. So as we know that, like, yes, 16 will be important, but we don't have like a crazy amount of players from those sides that are missing. Like, I do have a few of the Manly boys now, and once Dylan Egan goes, I won't have any Dragons there, so that's fine there as a general overview. Just those couple of sides there with just the one doggy. Preston, we can have a look at as well come round 15, but yeah, Olakau'atu performed last week for me. Eli Katoa was solid. I did end up captaining Terrell May. It was going to be him or Drinky, and it was a couple of minutes before lockout, and I was like, oh, I should send it on Drinky. I think that they can put on a score, and they were on the way to doing that. I think he was 56 at half time as well after that runaway try, which you don't get as many points for in Supercoach. You know, looking for meters gained in fantasy compared to Supercoach there. But then the Tigers' comeback was from then on. So yeah, that slowed him down a little bit. But you know, having Tamale and continuing to play him has been great. Teddy's 91 was really solid as well. So generally, there weren't too many low scores, and we had a couple of the winning scores in Olakau'atu, Kolomatangi, Hopewade, Tamale, and Teddy. Really, just to ride this win of a winning week home for me there. Now let's have a quick little look at the positions, and yeah, if you manage to hold off selling Starling, then hopefully he's back to those decent minutes. McInnes comes into a bit more of an interesting section now. He's averaging 62 for the year, and 600k is a pretty solid price in general. Blake Brayley, an okay price there at 524, but to be honest, Damien Cook would be the guy. Very, very cheap now at 489k. He's the main guy you would look at, and then Jazz Savanga over the last few weeks has been that player as well. If you jumped on last week and sold Starling or your other hooker to him, or had him in second row forward, then that's been great. At 509 now, I don't know how important he's going to be at that price point, whereas in the 400s was really good. He should still do a job, but how incredible he's going to go is now up to the fantasy gods, rather than it being a pretty clear buy with guys like Gerbo out, who will return this week, most likely. I think Takao will still be out for a little bit, but yeah, that hooker position, I think, you know, Damien Cook comes in as an option now, definitely. Front row forward with Tino and Haas going a little bit low was a bit frustrating, but looking forward to next week, remember you don't have to cover in Supercoach each position. You can use your reserves and just get your strongest 13, or at least get 13 on the park. Now, Adam Fanua-Blake under 700k is in a pretty decent position there for sure, as a guy that can continue to do well and has gotten through that round 13 bye. So hopefully his shoulder's all good from what we saw there. He was in a bit of discomfort there, and in the sling coming into their bye. Aaron Clark keeps going well, doesn't he? 75 average the past 5. That's incredible. As you can see here, majority of the guys in this top section all Origin players, or they coming into a bye. Now the biggest one at a decent price there is going to be Toby Couchman. A really good effort on the edge there, and if he continues to stay in that position, I haven't heard any news on Su'a yet. If he keeps that spot on the right edge, then he should play big minutes, and yeah, they've got a few of the edges out, which is the tough part. Should play the big minutes and has opportunities to score more tries now, which is going to be great for Supercoach. And at a reasonable price with dual position, that's where he's interesting. If you've held on to Nafahu White, continue on with that one. And as you can see here, we're going down the line and in total points, and there's not a lot of guys that actually stand out. With Hamish Stewart at 450k, will do a job, but I don't think is someone you chase at this time of the season. So front row forward, generally a position you don't have to stress too much about. You got Fisher Harris now, who comes into a little bit more importance with his counterpart Mitch Barnett, unfortunately succumbing to that ACL injury, and Fisher's coming off the couple of low scores, one being an injury affected one, and yeah, lowest score last week as well before this 61 here. So in an improved spot for him, but at 460k is the guy to have a look at in that spot if you need someone at that cheaper price and you want to move on from the Thomas Cants and these types of players there. Now, second row forward, it's a lot more of an interesting position. Guys like Olakau'atu now, I still don't know. After buying him, I was like, it's just a bit frustrating there with him as to what you get week to week. Horsburgh you can move on from, so same with Thomas Cant. Egan definitely. Colo at 678k now, I still think you go for it even though he went up a lot of cash last week there at 66. I still think you jump on there. He's got another low break even. He will keep going up for the next bit of time. Now, second row forward on averages, it's a position that has a few decent players. Tino being the jewel. Preston, we have to wait a couple of weeks at 74.5, and Hudson Young is in Origin. Dylan Lucas, I'd imagine most people have, and should hopefully continue to go well. So then you've got Keon, I'd say buy first, and you see Olakuatu here as one of the better averages in this section for guys that don't play Origin, which majority of them do. Kaipi's Ball finally was able to score a try, and his average has been solid without being spectacular, and that's why he's been in that mid 500s range, and he's got a good runway up till round 18. I think he's one of their more important players at the moment. He's putting in good work defensively, and then has opportunities in attack. I feel like him and Dane Gagai should be able to work much better together, but again, their team is pretty average there. Because someone like Siwa Wong, now at this 520 price, he's lost the majority of his cash, so I think when you can hold him for next week, then that's a good idea. White, we mentioned the same in the front row forwards. And moving down the line here, not a lot of interest in the second row forward position. And reason also why I'm not mentioning many cash cows, guys, just because there's not a lot available. And that's where in weeks like this, if you have a fairly strong 18 there, maybe it's 16 guys you're really happy to play and a couple of guys that you're like, not too excited about, then it could also almost be a bit of a hold week. We will find out a little bit more information this afternoon around TLT, but generally there's not going to be too many surprises in this week when all the Origin guys are available. And then the following week is when you could possibly find a decent cash out. Halasima still kept his price stable, even moving off to the bench. So with that score now, you can hold another week and decide a little bit later. But at that price, again, there's not a lot of options, and that's why guys like Jazz Savanga have become a little bit popular there, and he's up to 6%, which is still not crazy. Blake Steep, another decent score from him, and Egan Butcher as well. So yeah, this position, it's actually filled with not a lot of options, and that's where guys like Olakuatu, who play 15 is cool. Guys like Eli Katoa at a really nice price at 640. Yes, misses round 15, but then is absolutely awesome following that. Now the halfback position is also a little bit weak. Fogarty's coming off this injury. If you've got Luke Metcalf, he continue strong there. Isaiah Katoa averaging 65 and has been solid without knocking the door down. So guys like Nico Hines, they have the biggest upside right now as players that aren't playing Origin. Reynolds coming off a low one. I think with him, he'll be an interesting one following round 15 bye, especially with that 39 in his rolling. Could drop a little bit and then help you guys out if you do want to climb into that one. The very interesting one here is Daly Cherry Evans. Now, could you go early on him? That's the big question. Now, he's not going to... If you leave him and then he gets dropped for Origin and you want to buy him next week, you can definitely do that. He's not going to... Unless he scores like over 100. He's not going to go crazy on you. Let's just check actually what that break-even is. Actually, yeah, break-even of 44. He's just so cheap, eh? So you only need like 40s and 60s to do well. So yeah, if he gets like a 70 or something, he's still going to be under 500k. And if he doesn't make Origin, then he's pretty interesting come round 15. So keep him in your thoughts there. At 470, you can also jump on this week if you have an easy way of getting there. Now, if you're ready to sell a halfback, sweet. If you've got Sandon Smith, you can move him up and sell one of your hookers, something like that, if you wanted to. But he's such a crazy price for what we know he can do. Jerome Hughes is 600k, coming off of 34. He still has room to go down now, and I think we definitely wait until 16 now if you hadn't jumped on. You'd go for DCE, I think, before you'd go for Hughes, and hope that, I suppose, if you're in that game of taking the odd risk there, then that could be cool. And now heading down to this low average section, you've got guys like Hugo Savala, who I think you can easily hold for the week and move around second row forward, halfback, however you want to play that one. How did Jamie Humphries end up at 267k? That's wild how that ended up after how good the start of his season was, and Wishart had a really good score as well. Jerome Luai 357. He should start next year So cheap, but 5/8. That's the next section. The interesting one there is those couple of Dogs players in Burton and Galvin, who I was having a look at earlier today, and I can't really split them, to be honest with you. Both very, very similar in price there. 534 for Galvin, 535.8 for Burton. Galvin's averaging 59, Burton's averaging 54, but Burton has that injury game in his, and then has a HIA and a few different things for him in that one. Now with Galvin, he just moves to a better team now. So do you take the upside in what we know he can be? Like last year, he did really well with the Tigers. He's had a lot of noise around him this year. Sort of once he came back, he had that one good game and he's been really poor since. So that's dropped his price with that average still being high at 59, as we said there. In terms of point of difference, guys, I think he'll be a fun one. Burton goal kicking though, especially when Crichton's not there, has that upside on that front. How they play this is going to be the question. So do you wait another week or do you jump in now? I personally think I'm probably going to have a go this week and trade Egan to one of those two. But who is going to be the question? If you got Metcalf, you're holding on strong. Dearden, same deal, at least for the week. Jaden Campbell comes into people's thoughts there with a 93, 2 try assists and a try for him, and comes up against the Broncos, who are struggling a little bit. So I think that'll be a fun clash for him. If you have the cash, him at 700k will be one of the better buys of the week. So have a look at him and see if you can fit it in, because fullback and 5/8 can be a little bit tough given they're very small positions with a small amount of players. So that's the 5/8 slot. Last two there, guys. So yeah, Leo Hopewadi, what a gun he has been for my side. Tuipulotu probably comes back this week. Got Jackson Paulo with an 84, so a couple of good averages there. But guys that are now come more on the radar are Kale Iro. He's averaging 82 and absolutely smashing it. 730k, will continue to stay up there and be one of the best scorers. Now, will he finish at a 75 or 73 average? Probably, because I don't think he can score every single game, but he's doing a good job at it right now, and he's one of the top guys on this list. It's him and Herbie that really come into people's thoughts here over the next couple of weeks. Now, Iro, with the lower ownership, that could be a little bit more appealing to you to try and catch up as well if you're in a position like myself where you are lagging behind a little bit, which is pretty crazy that Iro is owned way less than guys like Lehigh Hopewadi. Nwangi Tuaze at that price, 680k, not a buy anymore, but I think is a very easy hold. He's averaging 70. He's been doing really well across the last few weeks as well. Fletcher Sharp, similar situation on I think you just hold at this point. He does have the low score in him, and we'll see him go back to 6 with the team going pretty poor. That's the kind of worry there. But other guys on this list are Origin, with Holmes, with Lomax, with Karaz, that we all have interest with Karaz coming back from injury soon in a few weeks. Greg Marzu, if you're holding on now, I think you probably stick solid there and just wait for him to come back. But there are guys that are likely to be scoring better than where he's at, especially with the team in the Knights where they're currently at. Now, Purdue picked up 100 here. Not expecting a great score against Melbourne, but we also saw JC come out and really dominate. But it looks like Purdue will be fairly reliant on attacking stats here in this one, with his meters gained dropping. He makes some tackles, but he'll miss a few as well. So we just liked him running the footy more, which is going to happen less in the 6 slot. Now, Tamale, just stick solid with him, definitely in this section. But again, as we scroll down, there's a few guys available, guys like Leo Hopewadi, doing a good job but getting too expensive now. Dane Gagai, he's gone well the last 2 weeks, and that could continue, definitely. You probably would have preferred to buy him in the mid 500s, but at 600, it's still an okay price. Rob Toya, I did have to sell him last week, unfortunately. Shame I had to. I couldn't get rid of Egan. I think it was 20-odd thousand or something. I couldn't do it, so it was frustrating. But 67k he gains, and is a terrific time to sell with him going to be in Origin as well. So he's a good one to move on from. And again, most of the options that you are going to want, guys, you're going to want to go up in price, which is pretty tough to get to. Someone like Jack Howarth, he's had a really rough season in the end and got the injury there, but he was back on the weekend and picked up a 37. So he's an interesting cheaper guy now that you could buy, or you could wait till 16 and see how that's going there. And Will Penasini's dropped 185k. So that's pretty wild. Yeah, and that'll do for centre wings. No one really of note. Latu Fainu is going to be an interesting one as to what happens with him there. Now for the fullbacks to finish, guys, as I mentioned, those top 3 are the guys you want. Then Campbell would come into that in number 3 or 4 there. Pappenhausen does have a bye next week. Teddy's got the bye this week, so you don't have to worry about Ted in this one, which is a shame for my side there. Chan's coming off a really big game. We see Tom Turbo, unfortunately, getting rested again with his myofascial issue there with his quad. And you can see there not a lot of love down below. Guys like Yongi can definitely hold at 562. Latrell definitely holding on here, coming off a good score. Tracy's an interesting one. Some people might look to buy him over the next few weeks, which is pretty wild. Very, very low last 3. And he's going to lose a lot of cash again. So if he can get anywhere near 500, he becomes interesting as centre wing and fullback as well. And Heath Mason will make cash this week at 276k, but I can't recommend anyone buying him. So there you go. That is that one. May as well have a quick look at leagues. Just shout out to the people in the private crew that are up top, and Scoop is still leading that. Him and Jacob both lost a few ranks there, but nothing too crazy. Jaden with a nice score there, along with David, moved up 737 spots into 620. So we do have 5 guys from the private crew in the top 1,000, top 650, which is great. And I'm lagging behind a little bit, but we'll get there. And then the Podmasters, just to shout out a few of those guys that are up top in Matthew, Chris, Luke, Daniel, and Mr. Scoop. Yeah, the top 2 lost a little bit, unfortunately. Luke moved up 74 and Daniel moved up 46 spots, with Chris with a hectic 1385. More than half his ranked, which was awesome there. So that's those guys there. If you want to see further down the line, a few of the people you may know, some faces there. Tim went back a little bit further again. A bit of a tough little section there. Aman holding steady near 4k. And I suppose the positive with my side here is that we are on the improve dramatically, which is great. And hopefully we can continue to do that over the next few weeks. And I think that we can. The team that I'm throwing out there this week, if I'm buying one of those dogs guys, I'm really just removing Horsburgh as a play this week. So sitting Dewey at this point. Yeah, so just be moving on and just giving myself another option if things go awry, if with injuries or whatever else. Then we've got that. Now my main worry myself this week is going to be not having Cleary against the Tigers. So I did sell a couple of weeks ago to improve the side, and that's my main miss right now, is not having Cleary, which the following weeks will be great. But we got through with an 86 or 87 on the weekend, and if we can get through again with an under a ton against the Tigers, I'll be pretty happy with that. But I'm not going to hold my breath with that one, and I'll just follow him along in fantasy, and hopefully a lot of the try assists, like we've seen for a few weeks now, go to guys like Blaze Talangi and Dylan Edwards and those types of guys there. Isaiah Yeo potentially as well. In terms of vice captaincy and captaincy, we could look at that first game, but it doesn't excite me that much. It could be a Lehigh Hopewade actually at fullback. That's not the worst shout up against Newcastle, but their defense isn't that terrible. We then have Melbourne and the Cowboys, so that's where someone like Pappenhausen could be a really good vice. As we're seeing here, I don't have a lot of guys that are available to play it. If Thomas Kant is on the bench, which he likely will be, he would likely be the 18th to drop in if I took the VC. And then captaincy wise, we can keep it really simple with a few guys later in the week. We could look at guys like Nico Hines, could be fun, but his upside at the moment is fairly limited. We're not going to go for Drinkwater against those Storm boys, and so that's where May could be really safe. Guys like Colin Matangi could do a pretty solid job as well. But yeah, the captaincy this week, that's where I think Cleary is going to be able to dominate. So I really need a good captaincy score. Up near the 100 mark would be great, but yeah, we'll see how that one goes. Even Payne Haas could be a fun one against the Titans there. So we'll see. Averaging 90. Surely he's in for a better game there. So that's that one there, guys. Thanks so much for jumping in, checking out this video. I appreciate that. We'll jump in for TLT this afternoon. See ya.